Hey everyone, quick preface to today's analysis. Today marks the year anniversary of the channel. I want to thank you all so much for supporting me on the journey to analyze all of Bach's chorale harmonizations, and I'm really looking forward to where the channel goes from here. We still have some more Bach to look at, but I definitely have plans for the channel moving forward, and I'm really looking forward to continuing to analyze on the channel. So here's to another year, and I hope you enjoy the analysis. Hey everyone, how's it going? Forrest here again with another installment of my complete analysis of all of J.S. Bach's chorale harmonizations. Today we're looking at Jesu, meine Seelen wohne, which translates to Jesus, delight of my soul. We looked at this particular text and melody yesterday, so if you want to check out a comparative analysis, or I guess an analysis to compare this one to, check out yesterday's video. That would be episode 350, because today is episode 351. All in all, very similar in terms of the key structure, right? We're seeing pretty much the same keys throughout both harmonizations. However, this chorale is by far harmonically plainer than yesterday's, so not as much to talk about. But if you want to hear some more about the, I guess, idiosyncrasies or little details that you could find in a harmonization like this one, check out yesterday's video. We're going to breeze right through this one. So 2 flats in the key signature. We start on B flat, we end on B flat. I reckon the overall tonality of this chorale is B flat. We then move to G, B flat, and E flat, which is 4/6, E flat major over G, passing tone here in the tenor before we get D, D, A, and F. That 4/6 to 3 progression was something that was unusual, I guess shared between both chorales because it's the same melody and they're similar in terms of how Bach grouped them together. We then have G, D, B flat, and F3, taking us to 6/7, G minor 7 in root position, passing tone in the alto here. We then have C, E flat, G, and E flat. We could call this a 2 chord, or actually I just tricked myself there. I was thinking my thoughts out loud with the, this would just be a regular old 2 chord, but I'm inclined to believe that actually, I'm inclined to believe that this is a 7 chord actually, and the A is our root here. So this would be 7/6. The main reason why is sort of how this chord is functioning in the grander scheme of the progression, right? 6 going to 7 is a normative progression because they're adjacent to one another, and with the tonic triad on the other side, the 7 just tends to explain the resolution a little bit more logically. We have B flat, F, B flat, and D. 6/7/1, relatively common progression, and our half cadence concludes with 5. F, F, A, and C. F major in root position. Next phrase, still in the key of B flat major, ends in a perfect authentic cadence. No modulations just yet. We start off with B flat major, B flat, F, B flat, and D. Tonic triad root position. That takes us to C, E flat, A, and E flat. Could be a 2 chord if you look at this G as the chord tone, but I look at that as a passing 7th. This is actually 7/6, A diminished over C. And when you look at a 1 going to 7/6, we typically know what's going to be on the other side. It's usually a 1/6 chord, but instead of 1/6, we see D, D, F, and F. This is something that came up in a chorale recently. I'm going to hedge my bets and say that it's a 3 chord. 7 typically wants to go to 3, or the roots want to move from 7 to 3 here, but I think you could call this a rootless 1/6 chord, and the main reason why I feel like a rootless triad is a valid analysis here is because of how Bach uses 1/6 chords in this context here. It's much more common to see a 1/6 chord here, and if we don't have an A here, we don't know if it's a D minor chord exactly, but it's more likely going to be a D minor chord in the analysis because the missing tone would be the 5th rather than in the case of a B flat major chord where the missing tone in this case would be the root of the chord. So 3, 1, 6, 6 of one, half dozen of another. They're basically the same chord in terms of their function and pitch content. So in this case, this C is a passing 7th. We then have G, B flat, G, and D, which is our 6th chord, kind of harkening back to the first phrase that we had here with 3 going to 6 in the same metric position 2, passing 7th in the bass. And then we have E flat, B flat, G, and C. Here is a 2 chord, C minor 7 over E flat. We know that Bach loves 2-6-5 chords, especially in cadential contexts, and that takes us to 5, F, A, F, and C. That's F major, and of course authentic cadence concludes with 1 B flat, D, F, and B flat. That is our A section. Moving on to the B section. Sorry, I'm just moving some stuff off frame so I have enough room to write. We are moving to the key of C minor via the same method that Bach did in the chorale that we analyzed yesterday, which is through a 5 chord. So F major here, F, F, A, and C. It's our 5 chord. Nothing inherently C minor-like about this chord until we hear the B natural on the next beat, and then we realize that this chord is also 4 in terms of C melodic minor, where when you raise the 6th scale degree, the quality of the chord, or the subdominant, turns from minor to major. So Bach, it's relatively common for Bach to use 4 and 5 sort of as this common chord between adjacent keys, or at least adjacent roots. They're like mostly diatonic to one another. But 4 is going to take us to D, F, B natural, and D, which is B diminished over D. That's 7/6, and we would expect that to go to our tonic triad C minor, which it does. C, G, C, and E flat. Passing tone in the bass before we get E flat, C, G, and E flat, which is just taking our chord and putting it in root position. No need to reiterate the Roman numeral here. We could just change the figured bass, passing tone in the bass as well, and then we get ready for our perfect authentic cadence. G, C, G, and D. Very common for Bach to use 4/3 suspensions over dominant chords, especially in root position. This A is also an enclosure. It's just ornamenting the resolution to the 3rd of the chord here, this 4/3 suspension. Then we get the resolution on the next beat, but Bach also changes the alto here to include the 7th of the chord in the voicing. G, B natural, F, and D. Then we have E flat and C as anticipations before our final C minor triad. Okay, moving to the next phrase of the B section, we are going to modulate to the key of E flat, and the entirety of the phrase is going to stay there. Just like yesterday's chorale, we start off with a tonic triad here at the beginning of the new system. Something that I like to point out when this comes up in my analysis is that in this case right here, where we have like 2 5 chords sequentially, or consecutively rather, not sequentially, but we have 2 5 chords. I won't reiterate the Roman numeral on the second one or however long it lasts, but when there's a line break, like when we have 2 1s next to one another here, I will reiterate the Roman numeral on the new line just to create continuity, because there is a line break and you're no longer reading from left to right. You are kind of like a carriage return on a typewriter. But this C minor chord, C, C, G, and E flat is going to be our gateway to the key of E flat. It's now our 6th chord, and then we move to a B flat chord. B flat, D, B flat, and F, which is our 5 chord B flat major with a passing 7th in the bass. We then have G, E flat, B flat, and G, which is our tonic triad, E flat major in first inversion, passing tone in the bass, and then we get another E flat major chord, E flat, B flat, and G, which is just taking our chord and putting it in root position. So no need to reiterate the Roman numeral there. We then have B flat, E flat, B flat, and F. Very similar to the cadence we had in the previous phrase. This is just a 5 chord, but with a 4-3 suspension here in the tenor, and this C right here is just enclosing the D, like the E flat and the C are just surrounding the D. And then afterwards we get another 5 chord, except for instead of introducing the 7th on the beat, we get it as a passing tone here, and this E flat is a suspension, so we don't need to, or sorry, not a suspension, goodness, what is it, an anticipation, so we don't need to reiterate the Roman numeral here, and then we cadence on E flat major, E flat, B flat, G, and E flat. Alright, so the next phrase is going to take us back to the key of the tonic, but unlike yesterday's chorale where we visit the key of the supertonic and then we start the phrase off in the key of the tonic and then go back to the tonic by the end of the phrase, we stay in the key of E flat here at the beginning and then we end the phrase in the key of B flat. So we start off with a bit of an interesting progression. We start off with G minor, G, B flat, G, and D, which is a 3 chord in the key of E flat major, and then we go immediately back to 1. So we have F, B flat, G, and E flat, but this F is an accented non-chord tone, and it's really this E flat here that's the root of our chord. So 1 going to 3 going to 1, very unusual progression, not typically one we see in Bach's writing, but really I think this 3 is sort of operating more like an inverted 1 chord. So this is sort of like 1-6 going to 1. At least that's how I hear it, especially with F being on the harmonic rhythm here. But that takes us to 5, D, B flat, F, and F, which is 5 in first inversion, B flat major, passing 7th here in the tenor before we get E flat major, E flat, G, E flat, and B flat, our tonic triad, root position. And with A natural in the next beat, I think this is the point in which we modulate in the key of B flat major. This is our 4 chord, and that takes us to A, C, F, and E flat, which is F7 over A, which is 5-6-5, F7, F7 over A. And then we see sort of a similar cadential structure to how we ended our first phrase here, where we go from sort of predominant to dominant to tonic, and then it's a half cadence. So we end on the dominant, right? B flat, F, and D. So that's our tonic, B flat major, and then we cadence on F, F, A, F, and C. It's our 5 chord. And the chord is repeated on beat 4 here. We've seen this sort of repeated chord structure in Bach in the past. And then our final cadence, of course, is a perfect authentic cadence in the key of B flat major, typically what we would expect at the end of a chorale. We then have B flat, F, and D, B flat major, root position, resolving our half cadence, and we stay in the key of B flat for the rest of the chorale. We have B flat, G, and E flat. A is an accented non-chord tone. We get a progression similar to the way our chorale started. This is a 4-6 chord, 1 going to 4-6 being like the first progression we saw in the chorale. We then have A, C, F, and F. It's F major over A. It's a 5-6 chord. F is a chord tone, so we don't need to mark it. And that takes us to B flat, F, and D, which is our tonic triad and root position. We then have E flat, B flat, G, and C. C minor 7 over E flat. We know that Bach loves 2-6-5 chords, especially in cadential contexts. And then our final cadence is just around the corner. We have F, A, F, and C. F major, it's our 5 chord, typically what we would expect after a 2-6-5 chord. or just a 2/6 chord in general. And then we cadence on 1, B flat, D, F, and B flat, tonic triad, and root position that gets repeated as well. And that's today's analysis. Really, sorry, I bumped my microphone there. Not too much to write home about. Very similar to yesterday's chorale, kind of like a simplification of yesterday's chorale. All in all, very straightforward. I'd say this chorale, as far as like hallmarks are concerned, nothing really makes this one unique. I'd say yesterday's chorale has more of a unique profile. The 1 to 3 to 1 progression, or really just the 3-1 progression, I think is relatively interesting. But other than that, really not too much that makes this chorale unique. It's very straightforward, very simple. If you're interested in following me along on the journey to analyze all of Bach's chorale harmonizations, feel free to subscribe to the channel. You can hit the notification icon and like the video if you enjoyed the content. Thank you so much for watching the video and supporting the channel by doing so. I look forward to tomorrow's analysis, and I hope you take care.